Every spring, people spend money on chemicals to kill dandelions. They buy herbicides, they hire gardeners, they do whatever it takes to get rid of them, whereas I go outside and pick them for dinner. Hello and welcome back. My name is Teresa from the blog and YouTube channel freetoflower.com, where I share our life on our European farm, slow living, cooking from scratch, fermentation, and the philosophy behind why we do things the way we do. If that resonates, please subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Today, I want to show you something that has been quietly true about this kitchen for a while now, that almost everything we eat, we either grow, forage, ferment, or make from scratch. And that most of it costs almost nothing. Not because we're extreme minimalists, I wish, but we're not quite there, or because we are trying to prove a point. It's just because at some point, I started learning how to do things the way people used to do them. And it turned out that the old way was almost always cheaper, healthier, and honestly so much more satisfying than whatever the modern alternative is. So today I'm going to show you a full day in this kitchen. Dandelions from the field, flour milled from whole grain, yogurt made with only 2 ingredients, kombucha I've been brewing for 10 years, and fermented carrots that cost less than 50 cents to make and do more for your gut than most probiotic supplements on the market. Let's get into it. Dandelion is one of those plants that most people walk straight past without knowing what they're actually looking at, when every part of it is edible. The leaves, the flowers, the root. It's nutritionally dense and it has a long history of medicinal use, particularly for liver and digestion. It grows abundantly on almost any piece of land in Europe or in America, without almost any effort on your part whatsoever. It's genuinely one of the most useful plants you can find, and the fact that it is also the plant that people spend the most money trying to eradicate is something I find endlessly funny. I forage almost entirely on our land, although I forage a lot off of our land too. But both of those options mean that what goes into this bread costs me very little. I am using some store-bought flour for this particular recipe. I do mill my own flour. If you'd like to know more about that, stay tuned. It is coming a little bit later on in this video. The dandelion flowers go directly into the dough. They add a beautiful color, a very subtle floral flavor, and a kind of quiet wildness to the bread that you just can't get from any ingredient you could buy. This is one of those recipes that is really more about the idea than the technique. The idea that food can come from outside your door for free if you know what you're looking at. I'm going to link the full recipe in the description box below. And that knowledge, knowing what grows around you and what it's good for, is something that used to be completely ordinary. Every grandmother knew which plants were edible, which had medicinal uses, which were worth preserving, which should be consumed at what time of year. That knowledge got lost remarkably quickly as we moved away from the land and towards supermarkets. Reclaiming even a small part of it feels really significant to me. Starting with dandelions feels like the right place to begin, because they are everywhere this time of year. They're unmistakable, they're beautiful, and they're delicious. Yogurt is one of those things that I think a lot of people assume requires special equipment or a complicated process to make, when it really doesn't. It requires 2 ingredients, milk and a spoonful of live yogurt as a starter culture, and a warm place to sit overnight or even an Instant Pot. It is genuinely the whole thing. How to make yogurt at home is something I wish someone had taught me much earlier, because once you know how simple it is, the idea of buying it in plastic pots for quite a lot of money starts to feel a bit absurd. There are many different ways to go about making yogurt. I will link a recipe I have in the description box below, but my latest favorite way, which is by no means the best way out there, but for me, this produces the most consistent, creamy, delicious results that my family absolutely loves. You heat the milk to a certain temperature, you cool it down to the right temperature, you stir in your starter, and then you keep it warm for about 12 hours. In the morning, you wake up to yogurt, thick, creamy, probiotic yogurt with none of the stabilizers or thickeners or added sugars that show up in most commercial versions. The cost is essentially just the cost of the milk. I make a large batch of this every single week. It goes into breakfast, sauces, into baking, into smoothies. We have not bought yogurt from a shop in a really long time. This is the kind of thing that sounds like a lot of effort until you actually do it once and you realize it takes about 10 minutes of active time. And then it just sits there and does its own thing while you sleep or you go about your normal day. The same logic applies to so many things in this kitchen. The things that look complicated from the outside are almost never complicated once you've done them a few times. The barrier is not skill, it's just not knowing that it's possible or not having seen it done, which is exactly why I keep making these videos, because I wish I had been shown so many of those things much earlier in life. Most people have never thought about where flour actually comes from. Not philosophically, literally, physically. Flour is a seed. Wheat is a grass, the grain is its seed, and when you mill it fresh, you get something that looks and smells and behaves completely differently from the flour that comes in a paper bag from the supermarket. Although, I obviously still use that one too, as you saw earlier on in this video. Fresh milled flour has the bran and the germs still intact, which means it has the oils, the nutrients, the flavor that gets stripped out in commercial milling to extend shelf life. Store-bought white flour can sit on a shelf for years without going rancid because there's almost nothing left in it that can. Baking with fresh milled flour is a very different experience. The dough behaves differently, the bread tastes different, and what you're putting in your body is nutritionally in a different category entirely. I mill my own grain and then ferment the dough as sourdough. So this bread has been through 2 layers of traditional preparation: fresh milled grain and long fermented dough. By the time it comes out of the oven, it is about as far from a supermarket loaf as you can get, and the grain itself is one of the cheapest raw ingredients you can buy. What makes it special is not the cost, it's the knowledge of what to do with it and the decision to do it. This is one of those things that had to be made at home because it simply doesn't exist commercially. You cannot buy fresh milled sourdough bread in most places. If you want it, if you want to reap the benefits of it, you have to make it. And that fact, rather than feeling like a limitation, has come to feel like one of the most satisfying things about this home practice, and honestly, a huge privilege. I have been brewing kombucha every single week for almost 10 years. Which sounds crazy, but it's true. It is the first fermentation project I ever started, and it is still going, which tells you something about how much I believe in it, how much my family enjoys it. I came to fermentation the same way I came to everything in this space, through asking questions about my health and repeatedly finding the same answer, that the gut is the foundation of almost everything, and that the best way to support it is to consistently eat and drink living fermented foods. Kombucha is one of the simplest ways, and most delicious ways, if you ask me, to do that. Sweet tea, a live culture, and some time. What you get is a naturally fizzy, probiotic-rich drink that costs almost nothing to produce and that your gut bacteria genuinely thrive on. 10 years of doing this means I know my culture pretty well. I know how it behaves in summer versus winter, how long it needs at this time of year, what it looks like when it's thriving and when something is off. The kind of knowledge only comes from doing something consistently for a long time, but it can be taught and passed on. The compounding effect and benefit of feeding your gut living culture every single day for years, rather than a shorter period of time, is something you can genuinely feel. I'm healthier now than I have been at any other point in my life, and I really don't think that's a coincidence. I have a bunch of my favorite kombucha recipes up on my blog, foodtoflower.com. I'm going to link them all in the description box below. I also have a free ebook that you can download if you want to start making your own kombucha and you feel a little bit intimidated by it. I walk you through every single step of the process, take the guesswork out of it, and show you how you too can have delicious, probiotic, rich, fermented beverages in your own home in less than a week. Speaking of fermenting, I am expanding the amount of things that I ferment, as we truly do love all things fermented in my house, especially my husband, but really my kids and everybody else. So today I am making fermented carrots, and it might sound like the least glamorous thing, but it's so useful and so delicious. If you've never fermented vegetables at home, carrots are a great place to start. The process is almost absurdly simple. Some carrots, salt, water, a jar. There's many different jars you can use. I really love this one. It's new to my kitchen, but it just makes it so easy because of the water seal at the top. You slice the carrots, you make a brine, you submerge them, you leave them at room temperature for a few days. The naturally occurring bacteria on the surface of the carrot does everything else. No starter culture, no special equipment, except for the jar. No heat, just salt and time. A jar of lacto-fermented carrots costs virtually nothing to make and delivers more living bacteria per serving than most probiotic supplements, which can cost $30 or $40 a month. How to ferment vegetables is one of the most searched topics in this space right now, and for good reason. People are starting to understand that real food-based probiotics are fundamentally different and better than the capsule version. They arrive in your gut protected by the food matrix, alive and active in a form your body actually recognizes. I keep a jar of fermented carrots or other vegetables going almost constantly. They go alongside our meals as a condiment. The kids eat them. They take about 5 minutes to prepare. Once it becomes a habit, you genuinely wonder how you ever went along your life without ferments, or why you ever relied on store-bought, because the selection is so limited. The price is pretty steep, and for me, the thing that annoys me the most is running out and having to run back to the store to get more. When I look at this kitchen at the end of the day like this, the dandelion bread cooling on the rack, the yogurt sitting in the fridge, sourdough proofing, the kombucha fermenting, the carrots in their brine, I don't think of it as a project or a lifestyle statement. It's just how food works in this house and how it actually used to work in every house. None of this is complicated. None of this requires unusual skill or expensive equipment or training. What it requires is the decision to learn things that used to be completely ordinary, things every household knew a generation or two ago that we somehow collectively decided to outsource and mostly forget. The good news is the knowledge is still there, now more accessible than ever before, and so very easily learnable. It just takes someone showing you that it's possible and you deciding that you do want to give it a go. I will link everything from today in the description box below. The dandelion bread, the yogurt, fresh malt sourdough, kombucha. And if sourdough is where you want to start, my free sourdough ebook is going to be linked there too. There's also something else coming this summer that I think a lot of you are going to want to know about. I will share more very soon. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you don't miss it. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.